Open your ears and lube up your butthole. It's time for the What Do We Call It podcast. Now, here's your host. It's Jmann. Welcome to the What Do We Call It podcast. I'm Jmann.
I'm number one fan, Tim.
I'm gonna utilize this episode to focus on something from the news.
Really?
Yeah, like direct from the headlines. A West Virginia city has agreed to pay a former police officer $175,000 to settle a wrongful termination lawsuit after he was fired following his decision not to shoot a distraught suspect who was holding a gun. The lawsuit accused the Weirton Police Department of wrongfully terminating Officer Stephen Mader after he chose not to shoot a 23-year-old man while responding to a domestic disturbance in 2016. Here's a quote. "At the end of the day, I'm happy to put this chapter of my life to bed," Mader said in a news release by the ACLU of West Virginia. "The events leading to my termination were unjustified, and I'm pleased a joint resolution has been met. My hope is that no other person on either end of the police call has to go through this again." The incident occurred on May 6, 2016, when Mader responded to a domestic disturbance call and found Ronald R.J. Williams, Jr. with an unloaded gun. Mader told CNN last year that Williams was visibly choked up and told Mader to shoot him. As a Marine veteran who served in Afghanistan, Mader told CNN that he concluded Williams wasn't a threat, and so he tried to de-escalate the situation. As Mader was trying to get Williams to drop his gun, two other Weirton police officers arrived. Mader told CNN that Williams raised his gun and was immediately shot and killed by one of the other officers. A state investigation found the officers' actions were justified. On June 7, 2016, Weirton PD fired Mader. The lawsuit, filed in May of 2017, claims the department fired him because of, quote, failure to meet probationary standards of an officer and apparent difficulties in critical incident reasoning. September 2016, Weirton City Manager Travis Blosser told CNN that Mader was fired not just for the Williams shooting, but for a, quote, totality of circumstances, which included a March 2016 incident where Mader allegedly entered a man's vehicle without a warrant to put a ticket on the dashboard, and an April 2016 incident where Mader and other officers failed to report an elderly woman's death as suspicious. The woman's death was later ruled a homicide. Mader told CNN the March 2016 incident he was writing a second parking ticket for a vehicle when the owner came out cursing at him, so he responded with using the F word. Emergency responders told officers that the woman from the April incident died of natural causes.
What?
When reached for comment on Monday, Blosser said the city had no comment regarding the settlement. And Timothy O'Brien, lead counsel in the lawsuit, said he's pleased Mader's case has been resolved. No police officer should ever lose their job or have their name dragged through the mud for choosing to talk to rather than shoot a fellow citizen. His decision to attempt to de-escalate the situation should have been praised, not punished. Simply put, no police officer should ever feel forced to take a life unnecessarily to save his career. A guy from the ACLU said that yet another incident exposing the toxic culture that affects far too many police departments in America. We need to give law enforcement officers tools to effectively serve their communities. That means we need to invest in de-escalation training, implicit bias training, and crisis intervention training. Hopefully the resolution of this lawsuit will send a message of the city of Weirton and police departments across the country that our communities deserve thoughtful, compassionate, transparent law enforcement.
I'm sorry, the only thing in my head is Mader? It's like Ta Mader, but without the Ta.
Really?
Yeah, sorry. Okay, so he decided not to shoot an armed man.
Based upon his personal experience as a war vet, he realized this guy, or decided this guy was not a threat, and didn't shoot him. He attempted to try to verbally de-escalate. I don't know if he holstered the gun and drew out the taser. It doesn't give the details. But what we have here is a man that chose not to take a life, and he got fired for it. So if you shoot them, you're a media pariah, and you have to have armed guards outside your house worried about your safety. If you don't shoot them, you're still technically a pariah, but within your own grouping of police officers. So your own industry effectively turns its back on you. Even after the way it's been for them the last 5 years, they still thought to say, well, You should have shot him.
Yeah, it's not like he had anyone else life threatened, was it? I mean, it was
The other
just a
cops showed
distraught
up.
person with a gun. Yeah.
Correct.
He wasn't holding anybody hostage. He wasn't threatening to kill anybody. In fact, if I remember hearing that correctly in that story, didn't he tell Mater to just shoot him?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this guy was probably having some sort of crisis, but the bigger idea here is that he was damned if he did and he was damned if he didn't. Now, how fair is that?
That's not very fair at all.
We encourage police officers to stop, quote, murdering civilians, even when they show up and these people are brandishing weapons, threatening an officer's life, engaging in physical violence and assault, and basically partaking in actions that could end in great bodily harm or death for the officer. And we tell them, how are you always making the decision to shoot these people? It's not fair. And here he does the right thing by societal standards, and I'm throwing up air quotes, because that's more of a left-wing mindset, I would think.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
And then he gets punished by his own department.
And to cover their own asses for firing him, they came up with a bunch of bullshit like, well, he, without a warrant, went into a person's car. Quote, to place a parking ticket on the dashboard.
I think they got him on that one. You had no legal right to enter the car.
Well, I've just wondered, did he, open the door, or did he just reach through an open window? It doesn't say. But that's fucking bullshit nonetheless. And then saying a woman who died, well, is probably suspicious. It could be a homicide. And it's like, well, she died of natural causes. Well, Isn't he erring on the side of caution?
That's right out of the mouth of the emergency responders, that the woman died of natural causes. Further investigation into the cause of her death, which I'm guessing happened at the time of the medical examiner's autopsy, ruled that it was a homicide. But if you're not a medical examiner, you don't get those very specific and textual details to draw that conclusion in real time as a cop on the street.
Okay. First, the medical examiner on scene said no, it was natural causes, and then there was an autopsy and it said no, it was murder.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Mater and other officers failed to report it as suspicious, and it was ruled a homicide, but emergency responders told them that the woman died of natural causes. So their decision to report it as unsuspicious is based upon information that was fed to them by the EMS that was on site.
Okay.
If he's a regular beat cop, he's not a homicide detective who knows to look for very specific things, who has that extra training, who has that experience to draw from. It's all about your frame of reference, which I don't know if he had or not, but I'm guessing not. Because if he didn't meet the criteria of probationary terms, he's a new cop.
Man, this guy just got fucked left, right, and upside down.
Pretty much. Because now if he tries to get a job as a cop elsewhere, it's going to depend upon the administration to go, I understand that you felt the way you felt, and the other officers came in and then ultimately killed him. Which, I guess I haven't heard that guy's name other than here, Ronald R.J. Williams, Jr. Haven't heard that name in the headlines.
That's a hickey nickname. A hick.
Maybe the guy's drunk and he's having a really bad run, and he's just thinking, I'll take the easy way out. I don't have to kill myself. I'll go death by cop, and then my wife gets a big payout.
That's kind of
my
what
kids
it
get a
sounds
big
like.
payout.
So I'd honestly say this officer did the right thing there and is trigger happy. Shoot first, shoot second, shoot some more, and then try to ask question. Partners came in and, quote, saved the day.
Did they?
No.
Because let me read this again.
Did you not hear the sarcasm in my voice?
No, I hear that. I'm trying to get to the point where he determined that the guy was not a threat to him. Concluded that Williams wasn't a threat, so he tried to de-escalate. Mater was trying to get Williams to drop his gun, and then two other officers arrived. So he was the primary on scene, and these were the backup officers.
Who should have taken their cues from him?
Williams raised his gun and was immediately shot. So these are two guys who are like, gun! Pop, 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 pop. Hadouken! Threat neutralized.
Trying to look at it from that officer's point of view, they just got there. He probably brought the gun up, probably in a somewhat threatening way. But, I have to say, this first officer, Mater, did the right thing. When he should have radioed, hey, guy, he's armed, but I don't view him as being a threat, so when you come up here, don't just trigger happy. But that could have led the other way, too. Like, what if Williams did raise his gun and shoot one of the secondary officers on site,
Yeah.
You don't know.
I can think of a way out for everybody involved. I could work every angle of this.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay? So these other cops show up, and they see the gun, and the other cop is there, and they're going to err on the side of caution and neutralize the threat to save their coworker. Justifiable. Also, him deciding that he's not a threat, I'm going to try to talk him down. It's admirable from a civilian standpoint. From a police standpoint, it's dangerous to make that decision. And because the city itself cares not about right and wrong, but more about liability, that's what the government's worried about, getting sued, right? They could give a shit less about facts as long as they don't get sued. Or they'll work an angle to make sure they can't get sued, so that's why they fired this guy. So they could say, well, you didn't take the threat seriously enough. You put your own life and the lives of the people around you, any other civilians or witnesses, and possibly these two other officers, in jeopardy by failure to act. Justifiable from the city's standpoint. And the ACLU sees it as, well, this guy made a conscious decision not to take a human life, and you're punishing him for it, and that's just wrong. But then they pile on this other shit. That's what they do. They try to paint you as a problem employee so that they can make it easier to fire you. And that's just the actual machinations of the politics of working for the government.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Got some of that shit going on where I work.
So I like that he didn't shoot the guy. However, it could have gone sideways had he actually had a loaded gun.
So Williams' gun wasn't loaded?
No.
Okay.
It was unloaded.
See, again, that's, as I said, those other officers showing up had no idea what was going on. They just saw a gun drawn. And again, that goes back to what I've argued before. If you are approached by police officers, you don't point anything at them.
Correct, unless you want to die.
Which, of course, Williams stated earlier that he wanted to die. Go ahead, Mater. Just shoot me. Sorry, I can't help that.
Well, no, from the police department standpoint, here's another angle. He pointed a weapon at multiple officers, and he said, shoot me. So this guy was already not in a right frame of mind, and they were there for a domestic disturbance, which are police officers' least favorite calls to answer because everything's so emotionally charged. And you'll find that when they get there, they're so emotionally cold, they're almost apathetic. It's like a robotic response. Tell me everything that I need to know as fast as possible so I can make a hasty decision to make somebody leave. It's let's get this over with so we can get out of here.
Yeah.
They don't come there to be fucking crisis counselors. And when they talk about CIT, all corrections officers around the nation are getting that shit now. Police officers are getting that shit. I'm sure that fire departments and EMS are getting that. Somebody in crisis or crisis intervention training.
Yeah.
And that somebody's mentally ill or somebody's whacked out of their mind on drugs. The problem with CIT is now anything that goes wrong, your head in the sand, completely detached from the everyday desk work administrator is like, well, this was a person in crisis and you didn't treat it like a crisis. It wasn't a fucking crisis. It's not. If somebody drops their keys down a fucking sewer drain next to their parked car while trying to open the door to put the groceries inside and they start cussing and they, get mad and they punch the fucking window of their own car, well, some asshole a block away sees that shit and misses the part where the keys drop. He just sees somebody throw down a bag of groceries and punch a car window and he calls the cops. So he sees it as a crisis. It's not. It's all about weighing the totality of the circumstances, the important, minute, contextual details that define it as what it really is, rather than overgeneralizing so you can just take a quicker approach. Maybe the fastest response is not the best response.
No, I would say no.
I mean, think about it like when you're out playing paintball or airsoft. Your goal is to take out the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as soon as that fucking horn sounds and the game starts, do you just go, well, fuck it, I'm just going to go Rambo style and sprint across the fucking field and start spraying and praying?
No.
No, because
No.
you will be taken out of the game immediately.
Yeah.
You need to think. You need to utilize stealth. You need to find a nice position to hunker down for cover. You have to think it out. Just with this, he showed up. I'm sure he was behind the car door because the guy pointed the gun. And he said, shoot me. And just on a weird cop hunch, and that's really what it was. It's up to him to trust his gut to not fire his weapon. because the guy must have just pointed the gun and said what he said, rather than charging at him with the gun. Had he come at him with the weapon, I'm willing to bet 90% surety he shoots R.J. Williams Jr. because he's coming at him. It's more of an escalated threat.
I'd have to, honestly, from my viewpoint, if somebody pointed a gun at me, and this, when I play Airsoft, I usually shoot first.
Well, that's different because it's a game where you're going to shoot. It's kind of like when I was in skills and we did...
yeah, it is different. You're right. No.
We did these paintball exercises. Simunitions is what they called it. I thought it was a fucking crock of shit. Because I show up and I thought maybe there's the option that we're going to end up shooting. Every scenario there was shooting. All right, so there's one scenario where two guys come out of this. They built a series of sets inside of this garage warehouse on the backside of a business building, where it used to be at CCJLE off of Energy Park Drive. It's not there anymore. Now it's at Hennepin Tech. They built a whole new simunitions lab.
Okay.
And two guys come out of what's supposed to be a bank with a hostage. Front guy has got a gun to her head. Second guy is holding her shoulder behind the first guy. He's in between their heads, and then he's pointing the gun at me. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying to think. I don't want to shoot her, so I pause. And then they just start shooting at me. There's no exchange of dialogue, really, other than me telling them to drop the weapon and freeze. And one of these assholes, shot me in the fucking pinky knuckle.
Hurt, doesn't it?
Oh, it stung like a bitch. It was a 22 cal paint round. And then I shot back and they're like, well, you hit the hostage. I'm like, no, I didn't. Because I'm not even sure if I really fired. I started walking away to get cover. And I just thought it was a really dumb scenario. Because immediately, pop, 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 pop. Yes, I get that that can happen. You're trying to get people trained to respond to live fire situations by taking cover or exchanging fire. But all you're teaching me how to do, really, in my opinion, is be trigger happy. Oh, gun, bang, 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 bang.
Gotcha, bitch.
What if, like in Officer Mater's situation, I order them to drop it and they freeze? And there's an actual resolution without the exchange of fire. It's a possibility. It's a slim possibility, but it's still a possibility.
It could be a difference for the situation with Mater there, like you said, the situation he was in, and the scenario you were in. There's already a threat being made with the gun being to the woman's head.
Right.
So there it's shoot. Were there any scenarios that you went through that day where it was just an armed suspect that you possibly could have tucked down? Like there was no threat other than this man holding a gun. He wasn't threatening someone else's life. He wasn't waving his gun at you. I mean, were there any other simulations? No, nothing. Everything was...
I wish that was the case because the second scenario was even dumber.
Well, let's hear it.
They had a car inside. They had an old Crown Vic inside here that served as a vehicle that I was pulling over.
Mm-hmm.
And I get out, go walk up to it, and the guy just leans out, just puts his hand out the window and shoots me twice in the body pad. I was basically wearing catcher's gear.
Which can happen. I've actually seen videos where
right,
cop pulls somebody over, goes walking up, the guy just bam, bam, and drives off.
And before I explain the rest of the scenario, before I forget, because I'm woefully under-rested this week, I just want to say that once again, I find these to be faulty in establishing a mindset that every threat is to be treated as imminent death. Because you get in that mindset of, oh, got to get that gun out. You can get the gun out, but you better be at a fucking low ready. Don't always go out with your gun ready to go. Because you could end up as the next fucking Officer Yanez with a Philando Castile on your conscience for the rest of your life. It pays to take a breath. Examine the situation. Don't go in there like fucking Wyatt Earp at the OK Corral just firing like crazy, hoping to get out of there. Because not every situation is, oh, here comes death. I'm knocking on the door. So the guy shoots me in the body pad twice. And he had a passenger who immediately bailed out the door onto the ground. Which I took to mean that, what, is this person a hostage too? Because you're thinking, well, I'm already shot, but it would have got me in the bulletproof vest. So being the dick that I was, I put my gun, he had all the windows down. I put my gun through the backside driver's window, and instead of just going bang, I shot an actual police officer in the back of the fucking mask, in the back of the head. I'm sure that shit really stung. I guarantee I broke the skin. He had to be pissed. But you fucking shot me, and we're treating it like it's a real scenario, right? Well, fuck you. Because you shot me in the fucking pinky in the last one, asshole. I'm just getting one back. I didn't realize it was the same guy until after I shot him in the back of the head. Then I go around the back to see what the passenger's doing, and I see they have a weapon they pointed at me. Well, what do you think I did?
You shot.
I shot.
Which, if I were in that situation, I would have shot too. Kidding. I would have done what you did. When I first got out, I would have looked, would have been shot, probably would have tried to shoot the driver, and then if I went around the other side, had I, quote, survived, yeah, if I saw a gun pointed at me, I would automatically shoot.
Here's the best part of that, with shooting the passenger. They go, why'd you shoot the passenger? She had a gun. Well, I didn't see a weapon. I'm like, it's right fucking there. She got out and I saw it as she's on the ground trying to get away. She wasn't crawling towards me for help. She was crawling away and I saw the weapon. Well, I don't think she pointed at you. I'm like, well, you didn't have the right vantage point. Everything about this training could not be more hackneyed and rushed, and they're always right and I'm always wrong as the rookie.
Did they ask her did you point it at officer such and such?
Oh, no, because that would have possibly proven me right. And plus, they do so many of these, they don't fucking remember.
I would think if I was doing a scenario as a particular officer, I would remember. I would be like, okay, this time I am not going to point my gun at the trainee, and I'm just going to try to crawl away. Or I'm going to point my gun at the trainees or see if they notice I did as I'm trying to crawl away. See, if you're leading this, if you're a part of this, you need to know what the hell you're doing.
I had partial cover on the back of the car, too. So, I mean, I wised up to taking cover behind the vehicle. The first one, it's my fault for not trying to get out of the way when he shot me in the pinky. Because I didn't know that we were going every scenario you're going to end up shooting. Which, going in that, you know there's going to be shooting, so what actual critical thinking do you develop knowing that you're going to exchange fire? How often do you go into a situation as a cop knowing, all right, I'm going to fire my gun today, someone's going to shoot bullets at me? Not many. Unless you are in Chicago, unless you're in Detroit, Baltimore, Memphis, you work Rampart in fucking L.A. Unless you are in a very poor, crime-ridden neighborhood where there's a lot of gun violence, you're not going to face that shit all the time, and it doesn't pay to have that mindset. No. Now, before we did simunitions, I'll back it up even more. We did felony in progress. And there was a scenario where I talked to a lady, and she explained that there was a gentleman who threatened her with a knife, and that he walked away when she screamed. So as I'm talking to her, he comes back. She's like, that's him. He's got a knife. He's got a knife. Before he ever presents the knife, they expected me to draw down on him because she said he had a knife. I don't know her. We just met. I don't know him. We haven't even spoke. And as soon as I look up, I go to put my hand towards my holster, and the guy, he has, one of the rubber simulation knives.
Yeah, I've got those.
He has it up his sleeve, so he drops it down, and then he does a cross-chest sideways swipe. He sidearm swipes at me. But I did this. I jumped back, and I put my hands up, and I arched my body, so he whiffed. And then the teacher goes, you just failed the scenario. I'm like, how do you figure? And he explains it, well, she said he had a knife. I didn't see the knife. I hadn't gotten here before she told me he had a knife, and I just met her. He's like, well, these are the decisions you need to learn how to make. Here we are again.
I thought I was making decisions.
Another scenario. I was going to grab onto my gun stock and unlock it. I wasn't going to unholster until I saw a weapon. Because I don't know what this is.
See, there they probably think that you'd be better off having your gun out of the holster in the load-ready position so that you can react just a little bit quicker.
Yeah, but I could also potentially see something that I think is a knife that isn't and shoot a guy that doesn't have a knife and then also fail the scenario. And the guy's like, you're overthinking these. Am I? Because I feel like you're oversimplifying them and making it so that you want to put a soldier out on the street, not a fucking cop. My goal is not to shoot people. My goal is to patrol the streets and keep them safe, and that involves a certain accepted level of danger on my behalf that I'm going to have to make those decisions. And yeah, somebody might pull a weapon on me and I might have to charge at them, bat it out of their hand, and go fisticuffs. But if I put a guy in the hospital with a broken eye socket, that's a hell of a lot better in terms of PR than putting him in the fucking morgue when it turns out that all he had was like a penknife or a candy bar or something else. Oh, did he have a cell phone on his lap that he went to touch? And it was a gun and I shot him in the chest 5 fucking times? Yeah, I'm not a cop anymore. Officer Yanez. Everything the police teach you to do on the street is antithetical to your reason to believe that there's good in people and that not everything's a threat. And it's as close to being trained as a soldier, it seems these days, as you can get. But then they try to backpedal by teaching you all these crisis intervention and de-escalation tactics. You literally can do almost no right in these situations.
That's what it sounds like based off the simulations you were talking about and Officer Mater here.
Yeah, he was fucked no matter what he did. But at least he knows that he's not the one that pulled the trigger.
He can sleep good at night.
And now he might not ever want to be a cop again. And honestly, I wouldn't blame him.
I wouldn't either. It's just like, I thought I was making the right decisions. I wanted to try to save a guy's life and not end it. I wanted to put a parking ticket where it wouldn't blow away in the wind or whatever because fucking windshield wiper. You know, this lady, it didn't look suspicious to me, you know. Whatever. Yeah, you know, I'm glad I never became a cop.
I saw this and I went, you gotta be fucking shitting me. Interact with the show on Twitter at, what do we call it? That is at, what do we call it? You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/what do we call it podcast show. For the What Do We Call It podcast, I'm Jmann.
I'm number one fan, Tim.
And that's the end.